test. Not really, yeah. Okay, good evening, everybody. Let me recognize everyone here present, including our panelists, staff of the NDFD. Let me also recognize those persons joining us on the various media platforms, Zoom, Facebook, NDFD Facebook page, Moon News as well, and any other media on which you are tuned in. Let me express a hearty NDFD welcome to everyone here this evening. This evening is segmented into two separate but related panel discussions, punctuated with the observance of Earth Hour. We at NDFD, we believe in sustainability through deliberate action. And hence this evening is designed to help build awareness as well as to build capacity through the provision of information, practical advice, and suggestions. We have a small audience in-house and a much wider one through the virtual space of social media via the media formats I mentioned earlier of Zoom, Facebook, and Imo News. I believe we are also streaming on YouTube. Let me just give a little brief on what this evening will be comprised of. The first segment is a panel discussion which will begin once I exit here, and will focus on critical areas which we can use to foster development in a sustainable manner within our country. And sustainability in the sense that we want to ensure that we use whatever resources that we have and also ensure that future generations can utilize it. While at the same time, we want to ensure that the businesses that utilize the resources maintain financial sustainability as well. And hence, the information that will be disseminated from this panel will refer to those various areas. And for that first panel, we have 4 experts in their field who will deliberate on each segment. And the thematic areas are water management, waste management and recycling, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. Once this wraps up, we will move somewhere just about 8:30. We will move into the countdown and the beginning of the observance of Earth Hour from 8:30. And we will do some activity which will sort of raise our awareness as to what Earth Hour is and the significance of it, and to ensure that we play our part. As small as it may seem, it will be impactful. I dare say that we have had various messages from the various influencers locally, and one of them significantly is from His Excellency the President of Dominica. These have been shared on the international forum through the World Wildlife Federation, WE, who are the leaders of the organization of Earth Hour, and we recognize their commitment to this cause. Following this observation of Earth Hour, we will move into the second panel, where we will have a discussion on sustainable agriculture. And there we have 2 experts who will also deliberate and disseminate information on sustainable agriculture. I can assure you, those who are present and those who are via the various social media platforms, that the information will be relevant, timely, accurate, and enabling. And I want to also take the time off to appeal to persons who want to participate in our Green Innovation Summit, that the information is being disseminated so that you can use it to develop and enhance whatever ideas that you have that you want to use to participate in our Green Innovation Summit. The information for registering for the Green Innovation Summit is available on our Facebook page, and there are links that you can utilize to get more information on that and to register. And we are making it a seamless and paperless transaction to register. And we are happy to welcome on board this year the young ladies who have started the We Planet app. So those of you who want to utilize that, you can download the app and use it to register, and we will automatically get the information. As part of our commitment, we are exercising the ability to use paperless as much as possible. Paper comes from trees, and the less paper we use, the more trees we keep growing. So persons who are interested in the Green Innovation Summit, you can register using the We Planet app or visit NDFD's Facebook page for the information to do that. You could also call into the office and get that information. Now, registration closes on April 25, 2023. I want to take the opportunity right now to introduce the moderator for the first panel discussion, the universally strong and classically cool Trudy Christian. I did take some time to find out what that Trudy, it rolls nicely off the tongue, really meant. And you were delivered to us because you portray what we were looking for. Miss Christian is an educator and a women's health advocate who currently works full-time at the Dominica State College as the Dean of the Confucius Classroom, and also lectures with the Faculty of Health Sciences. She holds a bachelor's degree in biology with a minor in chemistry and a master's degree in public health. In her position as educator and a fervent supporter for the youth, she has served as a proud advisor of the DSC Literary Debating Society for the past 13 years. The fulfillment of her passion for broadening the discussion surrounding women's health has founded the Nature Isle Ladies Support Group, and she is the president of the Dominica Association. She's also the business owner. I look forward to you taking a loan at NDFD someday. She is also the business owner of Women's Health Plus, an avenue for female empowerment through health education. I'm sure you would prefer to hear the classically cool Miss Trudy Christian as I hand over to her for this evening. I want you to, let's say, put our hands together for the panelists and everybody else here. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening to all our viewers who are with us live via our various social media platforms. Good evening to the live audience. Good evening, Mr. Joseph. Thank you for that introduction. And of course, good evening to the esteemed panelists who will be presenting this evening. So I was tasked this evening with moderating this panel, which will be on the theme environmentally conscious solutions for small businesses in Dominica. And we will be touching on some very interesting areas. Our panelists, I am sure, are geared up to deliver very thought-provoking information about the areas that they were tasked to deliver on. So this evening, we will be hearing on water management, renewable energy, waste management, recycling. And so I do hope that the listening audience gives the panelists a very good listening ear. And of course, the potential participants for the Green Innovation Summit are listening as well, because the ideas that will contend this evening will be very helpful in this summit, which is coming up. So thank you so much for having me. And I want to, with no further ado, start the panel discussion by introducing who will be our first panelist this evening. This evening, we will be beginning the panel with a discussion on water management from Mr. Edmund Laville. And Mr. Laville, if he'll allow me to introduce him, is an engineer by profession, currently working as the project engineer at DOWASCO, where he's responsible for architectural and civil drawings, design of buildings and water projects, and performing the requisite structural, hydraulic, and other necessary analyses of structures and water systems. He holds a bachelor's degree of engineering in civil engineering from the University of Technology in Jamaica. He also holds a diploma in quantity surveying from the UWI Open Campus and a diploma in water transport and distribution from UNESCO IHE Institute for Water Technology in Holland. Mr. Laville's professional experience includes work as a site surveyor for the World Bank Housing Recovery Program and Agricultural Livelihoods Project. When I looked at his bio, I saw that we went to the Dominica State College at around the same time. So I will say that we are former school colleagues. So good evening, Mr. Laville, and I welcome you to present in this panel discussion your topic area, water management. I look forward to your presentation. Of course, you have just about 10 minutes from what I see on our program to do so. All the panelists will have that time frame. And at the end, listening audience, we will be taking questions. So feel free in the chat to drop your questions if you do have questions for the panelists. I will engage the panelists in questions at the end of all the presentations. So, Mr. Laville, welcome to you, and take it away.
Hello? All right. Once again, a pleasant good evening to my fellow panelists, those in attendance, and those listening via electronic media. And as usual, I like to start off with a few interesting facts. Now, it is very important to say, and I would like to pick the interest and the curiosity of everyone here by saying this. More than likely, every one of us at one point in time is guilty of being a non-point polluter. There are point polluters which can be measured and are clearly seen. Industrial waste, municipality waste, and this can be measured. However, non-point pollution is something that's more difficult. You know, when we go to the rivers and we just leave our trash, we go to the beach, we throw our plastics, we sometimes just pour fertilizers on, you know, our grass close to the river. All of us at one point in time, we are guilty of non-point pollution. And I have a few graphs here. And within our estuaries, and those who do not know, estuaries is basically the threshold where usually the sea meets the river. And it's usually very flat and has a wide variety of biodiversity. Non-point pollution is guilty of 45% of the pollution and the contamination within estuaries. In lakes, 76% of pollution in lakes, non-point, from individuals. In rivers, we have 65% of pollution in rivers comes from individuals. Now, we all know that our Earth is, they say it's 77% of water, but 97% of the water on Earth is salt water. 97% of the water on Earth is salt water. Only 3% of the water on Earth is fresh water. And out of all of the fresh water on Earth, most of it is in the polar ice caps, is ice. Most of the fresh water on Earth is ice. And a small fraction, is about 35%, is groundwater. So that leaves 1% of the fresh water on Earth is either in rivers, on the surface of the soil, within our bodies, and as water vapor within the air. Water used by industry. Agriculture consumes 67% of the water that we consume on Earth. Agriculture, 67%. 20% is industries, 10% is domestic and commercial, and the rest, 3%, is evaporation from reservoirs. What is water management? Or we can say water resource management, or managing water. Well, it is the process of planning, developing, managing water resources in terms of both water quantity and quality. In the previous slide, we talked about the quantity of water that we have, the quality, and across all water uses. We spoke of the water usage. It includes institutions, infrastructure, incentives, and information systems that support and guide water management. They also forget to put here policies, governmental policies. The WASCO, the Water and Sewage Act of 1991, governs water resource management and gives the Dominica Water and Sewage Company the responsibility for supply and distribution of potable water, wastewater services, and management of Dominica's water resources. The WASCO current production. The WASCO abstracts about 10 million imperial gallons of water per day. There's a storage capacity of 5.8 million imperial gallons, and that is improving. There are 44 different water systems. And WA1 is the largest water system. It serves about 33% of the nation's population, and it encapsulates Meru all the way to Point Michel. The current infrastructural stock. The WASCO has 126 storage tanks and counting. We have 39 intakes. We have 23 pump stations and 2 ram pumps. We have a few municipal sewer systems and hundreds of thousands of feet of pipe, and all of which needs regular maintenance. In 2015, the WASCO conquered what was the last bastion, which is Bell's Penrice, and it gave us 100% water coverage on the island. North America has 100, Europe has 95, Asia has 81, and worldwide, 81% of the world's population has access to potable water. Challenges. These challenges, all of us face, whether we are on the grid or we are off the grid. During the rainy seasons, this runs from mid-June to mid-November, we suffer from what is called turbidity. It is a measure of the degree to which water loses its transparency due to the presence of suspended particles. The more total suspended solids in water, the murkier or the more chocolatey it seems to get, the higher turbidity. Turbidity is considered as a good measure of the quality of the water. Another thing we suffer from here in Dominica is what we call the dry season, KWM. This runs from February to May. Our smaller water systems are particularly vulnerable to this annual event. We have a fall in the available yields of water in our catchment, a fall in available yields from the rivers. We have a drop in production in our facilities, and we have disruptions in supply within our systems. Building resiliency. Just a few of the ways DOASCO has built resilience and seem to manage the water resource is that there's a thrust to build larger storage capacities, which will lead to fewer service interruptions and more reliable and dependable water service. And we have also encouraged people to store your own water. DOASCO has also gone into changing the location of its pipes. We are sometimes encrusting them in concrete above waterways, below the earth. We have built resilience in changing our intakes as well, making them more resilient, more resilient to impact loads and making them less of an impedance to the river itself. One thing we can do is to use renewable energy. And this is a worldwide phenomenon right now. Everybody's talking about this, including here in Dominica. We are moving now into using more renewable energy into managing our water resources and producing potable water. Ways to water manage, ways to manage our water resources. We can use water harvesting. Now, this method of storage is to collect rainwater into reservoirs and natural tanks. Groundwater harvesting, a method to save water and place it under the ground. In agriculture, the drip irrigation. Now, this is a very conservative way to water crops. Each of us can employ water-saving habits. We can also reuse and recycle water. In the industrial nations, they have gone so far whereby they actually recycle gray water, which is water from your kitchen sink, your showers, your face basin, and the black water, which is the water that you basically comes from your flush toilet. They have gone into recycling this to the point that it is safe to drink when it has gone through the process. Yes, I know most people will not ever want to drink it, but it has gone through such a stern process. They have recycled it. And government policies is another way we can manage water. Now, there are a few documents that have been made online, and throughout the years, government has been, writing policies. There are a few documents online. I will encourage some of you to, all of us, to go read up on some of them. The most recent is the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan. And most importantly, let us all stop being non-point polluters. There is a multiplicity of rainwater harvesting techniques for our houses, our farms, our businesses. Business owners can equip themselves with one of these. And in addition, there are a host of homemade water purification techniques. There are hundreds of them, household. And I would just like to end by saying that an enterprising entrepreneur, you can tailor make one of these to suit our local conditions. All right, thank you. This is the end of my short presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Laville, and thank you for the presentation. I do have a question for you, which will come at the end. So, you are not escaping yet, but I will come back at the end to pose that question to you. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, if our listening audience via our different medium platforms have questions, feel free to send those in. We will take those questions at the end of all the panelists. So we're moving right along to the second panelist for this evening, who will be speaking to the issue of waste management and recycling. And we have with us this evening Mr. Florian Mitchell, and he's an employee of the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation and has been so for the past 20 years. He's presently the general manager at the institution and is responsible for giving leadership and guidance to supervisors and other staff as part of his functions. He's also in constant dialogue with the wider Dominican public. Florian resides in Galion, a community where he was born and resides in for over 40 years. He has been an active community member since his early years as a representative on the Galion Valiant Seekers Youth Group and Southern District Youth Committee, and presently serves as the vice chairperson on the Galion Farmers Cooperative. He's a family-oriented man and has a cordial relationship with everyone in the community, regardless of age or religious or other affiliations. He has been an outstanding leader in the community that constantly engages young and old and has conducted himself in the highest esteem. He joins us this evening to present on recycling and waste management. Mr. Mitchell, good evening to you, and I invite you now to give your presentation.
Pleasant good evening. Certainly a privilege to be here. I certainly want to thank the National Development Foundation for bringing about the Green Economic Forum. I'm here to present on solid waste management and recycling. But in the waste management context, we don't really say solid waste management. We speak of an integrated solid waste management system. And recycling in itself is as a stem from an integrated solid waste management system. I did not present a lot of data in terms of the composition of our waste system in Dominica. I felt that would have taken too much time. I wanted to simplify what I'm going to say tonight, so I'm going to be very simple and brief, and that anyone who's listening in the visible or in the invisible audience should be able to understand what it is that we're presenting and understand the parallel that could be made with the Green Economic Forum and waste management system in Dominica, and how small businesses can be derived from that sector. Okay, so when we speak of ISWM, it is a sustainable approach to the management of solid waste. This covers all aspects of the waste management hierarchy to include generation, separation at source, transfer, sorting, treatment, recovery, and disposal. So that would basically govern or covers every aspect of waste management within any jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So to be able to discharge that, there are two critical elements that is required in having an integrated solid waste management system. One, you must have governance, and that would address your policy, your legislation, your multi-environmental agreements or bilateral agreements that our island may be signatory to, regulations. Then you need an operational structure. So you need a designated authority that is capable and charged to execute that mandate. You need human resources, very critical, public education, facilities and equipment to discharge those critical functions. Next slide. Okay. So the need for ISWM. Why do we need an integrated soil risk management system? So I just highlighted two SDGs, SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. And the need for ISWM, one, human health. And I just took one of the target from SDG. By 2030, improve water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, and minimizing release of hazardous chemicals and material. And if you notice on my slide, can you go back to this slide, please? If you notice in the slide, there is a direct linkage to the impacts of human health from improper waste management system. And this slide you would see would show you the effects of pollution on human health. So there is a parallel. So when we speak of an integrated soil management system, human health is critical in discharging this activity. And if you listen to our earlier presenter, he made mention of 9-pointer, and he went into statistics in terms of water. And if we understand Dominica acids, we have water all around us. Dominica is a very water-logged island, and if we do not have an integrated soil management system, you could well imagine the issues that we're going to have with wastewater and water pollution stemming from illegal disposal. Next slide, please. Again, the next parallel, environmental protection. And again, I just highlighted SDG 14, life below water, and SDG 15, life on land. And types of pollution. So in the waste management context, we would speak of air, land, and water. And again, the need for having an integrated soil management program, environmental protection is very important. We live from the environment. I mean, the soil, we use the soil for farming. The trees, without trees, we cannot sequester our carbon emission. And so our SDGs reduce marine pollution and marine pollution from plastic. And that is very, very critical. Again, small islands, we are very dependent on our ocean as a way of life. A lot of our protein comes from our fish, and there are direct parallels that if we do not have an integrated soil management system, we're going to have issues with our environment. And plastic pollution, as you can see, I came with my tumbler, and I would like to admonish us probably next time that we should get rid of the water bottles that we're using. It is a serious challenge for small island developing states, and we need to be mindful of the natural environment and the need for having an integrated soil management system. Next slide, please. Okay, so I was also asked, what are the issues that is pertaining to Dominica? And again, Dominica, like all small island developing states, we have priorities where national development is concerned. And to us at the waste management facility, one of the areas that we think that is a challenge is that of final disposal. And you would well imagine we have one central landfill, and the approach that we have been using, like all other seeds, traditionally, we move from open dumps to landfilling. And that is a linear approach where waste management is concerned. And that approach is not sustainable. And that's why we think of evolution. Then when you think of evolution, you think of waste to energy. SDG 12, SDG 9, SDG 9 speaks of innovation. SDG 12 speaks of sustainable consumption. And we need to have a paradigm shift. So instead of burying, why not conceptualize and develop what is considered a circular economy approach where waste management is concerned? So what the item that you're simply burying, is it a resource? And can it be reused? And that is where the parallel is made with recycling. So in achieving a circular economy approach, waste is a resource. So we need to understand that waste is a resource. We need to avoid waste dumping, whether in our landfill or littering, reduction, reuse, and recycle. These are key elements in having that paradigm shift. So final disposal is an issue for us in Dominica, and we need to develop systems that will allow us to evolve and execute a greater final disposal trust on the island. Next slide, please. So, potential business venture. So as I said, I try to move away from data too much. I didn't want to bore people in terms of composition of how much bagasse and how much packaging material. I mean, we could have those discussions after. But everything that we consume, and that's one of the things we need to realize, we are basically sold a product to consume, but there is a packaging material. So if you eat your Vienna sausage, then the can is something. Then it needs to be gotten rid of. If you have your ketchup, well, some of them are in plastic, some of them are in glass bottles. So after you consume, there is the packaging material. Now, how do we use that for a business venture? So in our waste stream, a lot of our waste stream, 45% of our waste is that of organic or biomass, and compost can be derived from that. Biogas, we have a lot of farms, we have a lot of animal dung, again, organic fertilizer. And for this, I need to speak a bit on recycling. So recycling has two threads to me. So most times when we speak of recycling, we speak loosely in terms of, you have a product, you bring it back to a facility, that is somewhat considered recycling. But when we consider circular economy approach, we need to take a step further. And that is where production of a commodity is basically closing the loop. So the packaging material, you could basically bale it and export it, which is something that we do at the corporation. But can we now convert that, because this is basically petroleum in nature, can we convert it back and to petroleum, right? So those are the parallel that we need to make. Next slide, please. This is not the slide I presented in my flash drive. So you would have seen another slide before this. So on my way today, I was asked to merge and include recycling as a component of my presentation. So I included a slide specific to recycling, and it would speak to what should I do if I'm going into recycling in Dominica. I think you should have gotten that on the flash drive. So one of the things that we need to understand is the market. So if you're going to use, recycling as a business in Dominica, what should I know? So first, you need to do a little market research, try to figure out the commodities in Dominica. Probably you want to do some board, you want to do some benches. So try to figure out the import. What is it that we import in a lot of? What it is that probably I could tap into that particular area. Probably 0.005% of that import could be a business venture for you. So you need to figure out, if you're thinking of recycling and producing a commodity, you now need to figure out the raw material or the resource that you're going to use. Is it available? Where is it? Can you get it from solid waste? Can you get it from another local source? How accessible is it to you? And then the capital that is required now to convert that material into a commodity is very, very important. And then after you produce the commodity, is it something that you're going to have for local consumption or international consumption? And all those elements are basically going to determine the cost of the final product that you are going to sell. I think that is the end. I think that should be it, and I think it would have thank you. Any questions? So I hope I did justice, and I hope I did not put you on the spot, but I believe we need to advocate wherever we are. And again, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to present to you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for that presentation. Thought-provoking indeed. I'm looking at the water bottle now, with a little hesitation about opening it up. Thank you, and the questions will come at the end. So we will move on to our next panelist. I believe we need to do some shifting to allow our next panelist to take a seat at the table. But we are moving along to a discussion on renewable energy, and we will be welcoming our next panelist to contribute in that area. Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Laville, you will be rejoining us for the question segment at the end. But I welcome now to the panel Mr. Justin Case, who will be speaking to us on renewable energy. So Mr. Case is an electrical engineer by profession, and he has over 30 years working with electrical power systems in Dominica and the wider region. His career started at Domlec, where for over 15 years he was engaged in the design, planning, and construction of electrical generation, distribution, and supply projects. This also included the performance of studies associated with the economic and technical feasibility associated with these projects. Over the years, with the advancement of technology and the effects of climate change, much attention has been assigned to protecting the environment and the use of renewable sources for the generation of electricity as one of the solutions in reducing the greenhouse gases that are the main contributors to climate change. He's quite knowledgeable in the area of renewable energy and is now employed at the Independent Regulatory Commission, the IRC, as the Executive Director, where he hopes to bring forth his vast knowledge and experience in guiding and setting the electricity sector in the Commonwealth of Dominica on a sustainable path for generations to come. I now welcome this evening to present on renewable energy, Mr. Justin Case. Mr. Case, good evening.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. I'd like to extend my welcome to all the participants, fellow panelists, entrepreneurs, medium, small, and large, and the public. So, I'd like to give a general overview, start by giving a general overview on the electricity sector in Dominica. At the utility level, the government of Dominica has ratified, at the national level, the government of Dominica has ratified the National Energy Policy, which basically guides the development of the electricity sector through the addition of renewable energy towards achieving 100% of our electricity via renewable energy sources. Okay, this we hope to achieve by 2030. It's quite an ambitious goal, but we're hoping that we can get there. With respect to renewable energy, in terms of our current generation mix, we have about 30% of hydro on the system. The rest is generated via diesel thermal engines. So we hope to get rid of that 70% of diesel generation by 2030. So the government has various initiatives. They have the geothermal geothermal production plant that they're working on, and there are other technologies that are being considered. One of the areas where renewable energy from a sustainable and green point of view can be embraced is via small, medium, and large business owners that would like to produce their energy at a cheaper level for their businesses. So my focus in my presentation has to do with renewable energy for business entrepreneurs at this level, and how it will benefit their businesses. So can you switch to the next slide, please? Okay, basically what is the renewable energy? Renewable energy is the energy derived from natural sources that are replenished at a higher rate than they are consumed. So you could just basically say that renewable energy comes from nature. Sunlight, hydro, wind, geothermal, and other sources that are constantly being replenished. Okay. As for our locality, Dominica, I would like to just say the most salient energy sources are solar, wind, geothermal, and hydropower. At this point in time, we have quite a bit of hydropower to the tune of about 30% of our generation mix. Next slide, please. Okay, so solar energy, the most popular type of solar energy can be derived from the installation of solar panels, which converts solar energy into electricity. Next slide. We also have wind energy. which can be derived from installation of wind turbines and utilizes wind energy to generate electricity. Next slide. Geothermal. We use thermal energy from subterranean thermal energy to heat steam to drive electrical turbines. Next. And finally, hydropower, which we have 3 stations currently at Luda, one at Luda, one at New Trafalgar, and the other at Padu. And this photo is representation of a micro hydro system that someone that lives close to a river can install to generate electricity. Next. Okay, affordable renewable energy for your business. Next, yeah. So for most businesses, so let me just back up a little bit. My slide focuses on how entrepreneurs can utilize renewable energy for their businesses. So we are looking at how to implement green and sustainable energy generation facilities. And the optimal approach for most people that are considering that are small distributed renewable energy sources on the rooftop, which can be bought from a supplier or ordered from overseas. But prior to that, what happens is that the interested party would have to do an energy audit and ensure that all the energy needs are accounted for in a manner that the provider can supply them with a design for their facility which will meet their energy needs. Okay, so one of the things that I must mention though is that for green energy systems, most of them are affected by the weather and other conditions, and occasionally, and therefore you would have to engage in certain efforts to mitigate such incidents. One of the areas where you can do so is also adding a battery storage system to your renewable energy system. So for micro, large, and medium businesses, most people would settle for a solar system on their roof, providing the roof has enough area to accommodate such a system to meet a significant size of chunk of their demand, or they would have to meet the rest by investing through the utilization of battery storage or get grid connected. Okay. In the process of determining the suitability of a system for your business, you would have to perform an economic analysis which would feed into whether such a system, investing in such a system would be viable for your business. Okay, the viability assessment will take into consideration unit cost of energy for the business, the payback period of the facility. And the higher the cost of the electricity from the utility, the shorter the payback period should tend to be for your investment, because the benchmark that will be used for estimating the viability of your project would be the current cost of the electricity bill. Next slide. How utilizing renewable energy can impact your business. Okay, so I would encourage business owners to think outside the box when it comes to satisfying their energy demands, and several benefits to switching to renewable energy sources over and above reducing your carbon footprint and energy bills. Renewable energy sources are not affected by fluctuations in electricity prices. That's the first benefit that you will derive. You can forecast expenses easily. It also becomes easier to plan your energy usage and needs as you get to grips with the average energy output of your green energy solutions. The combination of solar energy and the improving inverter technology means that you could generate electricity cheaply. An often overlooked benefit of converting to green energy practices is the social impact it has in your community and, among others, your customers and stakeholders. So sustainable energy practices are valued. They show a commitment to the betterment of the environment in which we all live, given that every advantage must be leveraged in this competitive landscape. You cannot overlook the impact that going green can have on your brand. And with the new thrust to protecting the environment, this would benefit the business and the community greatly. Next slide. So my conclusions, yeah. So my thoughts are that if you are looking to start a new business, expand operations, you are going to need energy regardless. As such, it makes sense to strongly consider renewable energy for your operations. It will save your business money in the long term. Do invest in your own equipment. Through investing in your own equipment. So, and plus it is ecologically sound, and wildlife everywhere will thank you for doing your part. I would like to add that with your investment in renewable energy as a business enterprise, you are likely to save about 20 to 30% of on your electricity bill over a period of payback period of 4 years, and for the investment in such an infrastructure. So most from our calculations at the IRC, we have found out that business entities are likely to benefit more than residential entities in such an investment. And I would encourage any entrepreneur to seriously consider looking at this option for their energy needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Case, for your presentation and for your advice at the end to budding entrepreneurs. We will, of course, as I said, be coming back to questions at the end. We have one more panelist who will be presenting this evening, and she will be joining us virtually, and she will be speaking to the issue of energy efficiency. Our final panelist this evening is Dr. Ginora Joseph. And Dr. Joseph is currently the senior engineer at Climate Resilience Execution Agency for Dominica, that's CREED, and she's the former chief physical planner and the president of the Dominica Association of Professional Engineers. She's a registered civil and environmental engineer with a Bachelor of Science degree with honors in civil engineering from UWI St. Augustine. She's the former civil engineer and senior engineer acting of the Ministry of Public Works. And Dr. Joseph has worked on substantial wind engineering and crop aerodynamics research projects in the UK, China, and Mexico. She has published and presented papers on air quality modeling, computational fluid dynamics, and crop aerodynamics in peer-reviewed academic journals at international conferences and workshops. Dr. Joseph is an advocate of sustainable development and energy efficiency, and she would like to see more Dominican women in STEM professions, particularly engineering. She enjoys short story writing and art in her spare time. I welcome Dr. Ginora Joseph as our final panelist this evening. I welcome her to present to us on energy efficiency. Dr. Joseph. So as we give Dr. Joseph a moment to come on, as I said, she will be joining us virtually. I want to encourage people to think up those questions, particularly individuals who have aspirations of participating in the Green Innovations Summit. Think of questions for these panelists. They are willing and able to engage in questions at the end of the panel, so I do encourage people to get their questions going, and we will be taking those at the end. Do we have Dr. Joseph?
I'm not sure if Master Control hearing you know.
No, I don't think they heard me. I got a message from Donald saying that they're not hearing me, so I'm not entirely sure what's happening.
But apparently people on the
but
platform hearing, but
Yes,
in the central
we're
command not
hearing
hearing.
we're hearing you on the call. I'm not sure why.
yes, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Joseph?
Dublin, we are.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, so I think we had a bit of a difficulty in hearing you initially, but I think we are set for you to
Okay,
go ahead.
great. All right, excellent.
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Joseph,
Okay,
go ahead.
well, in that case, yes. So I would just like to ask the technician to bring up the slides so that I can continue. Okay, that's not my slide set, unfortunately, no. Mine is entitled Energy Efficiency, a Concise Guide for Small Businesses. There we go. Yes, that's it. Thank you. Okay, once again, I want to thank the NDFD for inviting me to join the Green Innovation Summit for yet another year. And I'm also thankful that I was allowed to join virtually. So I'm hoping that in keeping with the presentation so far, I can deliver a session that is very informative as it pertains to energy efficiency. So the presentation is entitled A Concise Guide for Small Businesses, but in reality, this is something that is applicable to anybody. So hopefully the information I'll be sharing in my slide today will be something that all of you present at this panel will be able to take and apply into your day-to-day lives to conserve energy. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are some key questions. We've gone a little too far ahead. Can we go back? Thank you. There are some key questions that we wish to ask about energy efficiency. So first of all, what is energy efficiency? How can it benefit my business? What incentives are there for me to improve the energy efficiency of my business? How do I make my business more energy efficient? And why should I even bother? Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, I think I have lost the visibility of my slide, but I will continue. So in terms of what energy efficiency is, we are talking about using less energy, and we are usually talking about electrical energy when we speak of energy efficiency. And we are using less energy for operations or processes in our business, which might include lighting, refrigeration and temperature control, heating and ventilation, mechanical processes, office equipment, for example, computers and printers, and any other processes that are involved in the business, for example, cooking, pasteurization, food processing. And also, it's something that we do not often consider, but when we speak of energy efficiency, we're also talking about transportation of our people, of goods, and also transportation for delivery of services. Now, when it comes to energy consumption, that might be direct or indirect. So we have direct energy consumption when we directly use energy by the business. For example, we use appliances that consume electrical energy, or we use our vehicles. And we can have indirect energy consumption when we have other processes that do not directly consume energy, but require energy. For example, when we use water in our business processes, water requires energy for distribution, energy for the sterilization of the water. So that's an indirect consumption of energy. Now, in terms of your business, it is good to take a look at the various processes involved in your business activities so that you can identify the biggest energy consumption in your business. So one of the big consumers of energy is lighting, especially in retail. In retail businesses, we want to provide lighting, illumination for our products so that they appear more attractive to the consumer. So retail businesses do consume a lot of lighting. Refrigeration is something that is also very energy intensive. So refrigeration of food and so on, that is energy intensive. Now we live in the tropics, so cooling systems such as air conditioning and mechanical ventilation consume energy. Appliances that convert electricity into heat, for instance, any cooking appliances that use electricity, kettles and so on, these are energy intensive appliances. We also have computers, printers, and copiers that handle the various administrative aspects of our business activities. So these also consume energy. And of course, vehicles. When we transport goods, we transport services, we transport staff, we are consuming energy in using these vehicles. Now, energy efficiency can benefit your business in a number of ways. First of all, if you are operating more efficiently in terms of your energy consumption, you are able to reduce your operating costs, because you will have lower utility bills. You have less wastage, and that can increase your profit margin. You have lower carbon emissions, which is better for the environment. In the Dominican case, we are producing energy from a hydroelectric system, but we are also using fossil fuels in energy generation. So when we reduce our consumption through using energy efficient measures in our business, then we are reducing our carbon emissions, and we are basically safeguarding the environment. Now, consumers like to know that a business is engaging in green processes, in green activities. They like to support green businesses because people are becoming more environmentally aware. So when you are an energy efficient business, you're improving your brand and your business image for people who like green businesses. And of course, we are improving environmental compliance of the business when we are more energy efficient. Now, there are several incentives that exist to make businesses more energy efficient. First of all, a more energy efficient business has access to fiscal incentives. For instance, import duty reduction when you are bringing in, even for renewable energy generation, and also if you're bringing in more energy efficient, there might be various fiscal incentives for importation of energy efficient appliances and equipment. You may be able to access green and climate funding if you are taking proactive steps to make your business more energy efficient. And finally, you might get access to training and new technology if you are on a drive to make your business more energy efficient. Now, there are various ways in which you can invest and carry out activities in your business which improve energy efficiency. First of all, you can train your staff and yourself to develop an energy conscious behaviors and culture. You can also invest in an energy audit. Now, what an energy audit does, it looks at the various points of consumption in your business and establishes how you can reduce the overall consumption and make the business more energy efficient. You can also invest in energy efficient equipment and appliances, and we'll speak about that shortly. You can invest in energy efficient buildings and retrofits. Now, this might be more cost intensive, but in the long term, if you're reducing the energy losses in your building, for example, if you are using cooling and mechanical ventilation, and you are using insulation in the building, so retrofits that reduce heat penetration and loss of energy, energy efficient lighting. So these are ways that you can invest in energy efficiency for retrofitting the building in which you operate. Next slide. Okay, so there are some very simple ways in which you can make your business more energy efficient. First of all, you can maintain your equipment regularly. So check your equipment, make sure everything is working properly, and also check the wiring. So this is something that can eliminate any faulty wiring, any potential causes of electrical damage. So through basic maintenance and checking of your wiring system, you can improve your energy efficiency. You can buy more energy efficient equipment. I've said this a few times, and I cannot reiterate how cost effective it is to invest in equipment and appliances and machinery that is more energy efficient. You can reduce your energy demand, especially if you're using a vehicle, by maximizing your trips. So instead of having trips, that you have multiple trips, you can basically consolidate your trips in a vehicle to reduce your fuel consumption. You can turn off your lights or any equipment and appliances when they are not in use, and you can also use energy efficient lighting. You can shut down computers and any equipment, printers and so on at the end of the working day. So do not leave these things on overnight. Yes, some of them are energy efficient, but you do not need them to be consuming energy while they are not in use. So it's a good practice to shut them down at the end of the working day. And also, it's a good practice to switch off your electronics at the power outlet. So you don't want them drawing energy from your system, your main system. So you switch them off at the power outlet. So it's not just enough to switch off the device on the device itself, but it's also good practice to switch it off at the power outlet. Okay, next slide. Right. Now, there are means of determining whether an appliance or a piece of equipment is energy efficient. In many jurisdictions in Europe, for instance, they have energy rating systems that you can use to identify how energy efficient your appliance or equipment is. And so you may have seen some stickers such as these on some of the more modern equipment. So an A-rated appliance is something that is highly energy efficient, whereas a D-rated appliance would be much lower on the energy efficiency scale. And the energy efficiency rating of the appliances also comes with an estimate of what consumption you will find with that appliance. So in this particular instance on this slide, we can see that the appliance in question is A++ rated. So that's a very efficient piece of equipment. And it is going to consume about 280 kilowatt hours per annum. So already somebody who is purchasing this equipment can have an idea of how much it will cost to operate this equipment. And it also tells us any other information about the equipment, for example, the noise. You can see a decibel rating. You can see this one is a refrigerator. It tells you the capacity and so on. So by looking at the energy efficiency sticker, you as a business owner can already identify how you will be spending your monies in terms of the cost of energy to keep your business and your appliances and other equipment running. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, in terms of energy efficiency in building, I identified one of the means of conserving energy is through building retrofits and taking various measures to improve the efficiency of a building. So in particular, what we can look at is the energy efficiency of the building envelope. For example, the use of insulation to reduce cooling needs. When we use insulation, it prevents the penetration of heat from outside, from the sun, and so that reduces the overall temperature inside the building, and so you are able to have less demand on your cooling systems. We can also, in buildings, make use of natural lighting and ventilation. So instead of AC, using the AC units or having a fan, mechanical ventilation, or having the artificial lighting, what can happen is that you make use of windows and natural light to ventilate the building and also illuminate your building. The presenter before me, Mr. K, spoke about renewables. So the use of renewables, example, solar and wind, is always encouraged. It is, you can make, these are carbon zero sources of energy. So it's always good practice to incorporate renewable energy into your building operations and into your business practice. Landscaping can also improve the shading around a building, and it can also improve airflow in the vicinity of a building, reducing the cooling needs. And of course, high quality windows, double glazing, for instance, that reduces the penetration of heat from outside, from the sun, and the gain of heat within the building. So by using, these are things that are more costly to implement in the first instance, but over time, they deliver net gains in energy efficiency, which translates to a reduction in the cost of energy consumption in a business and in a building. Next slide. Okay, so we spoke about energy efficiency. We spoke about ways in which you can achieve energy efficiency in your building, but you may be wondering why do you have to bother? There is a cost, there is a capital cost associated with implementing these measures. So why would you bother to do so? Now, I will draw your attention to the Sustainable Development Goals, to which Dominica is a signatory. And one of the goals are to ensure that we have affordable and clean energy, and to have climate action, the reduction of greenhouse gases. So it is a good idea to reduce energy consumption by being more energy efficient. That way you are reducing the carbon emissions from your processes, your business processes, and also you're ensuring that energy consumption is cheaper. And Mr. K spoke about renewables, and what we all want for our businesses and our homes as well is affordable and clean energy. And so by reducing demand, we can reduce the overall cost of energy. Now, it is important for you as a small business owner and as a business owner by extension to reduce your operating costs by being more energy efficient. And also your business has to operate in a responsible way. So you want to be a responsible business owner and operator who cares about the environment. That improves your business image, and it improves, you can market that aspect of your business to consumers who have an awareness of green businesses and green business practices. And of course, it would be very remiss of me not to mention the fact that climate change is real. We are already seeing the effects of climate change, and it is predicted that these will become more intense, more frequent. And so we all have a part to play in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. Because climate change stands to affect all of us. It will affect your business. It will affect the operating environment of your business. So it is a good idea for us all to develop energy efficient practices. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention and your patience in awaiting me to come online. We had a bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but hopefully the contents of my presentation has been instructive for the panelists and the people who are present at the summit today. Thank you very much.
Joseph, thank you for your presentation. So we have now come to the part that we have been anticipating, where we get to engage with our panelists and get some questions from our audience on some of the material that has been presented here this evening. So I am ready to begin. In that vein, I will await questions from the audience. I see I do have some questions that have come in from our listening audience. The first panelist, I believe I will go to, Mr. Mitchell. I see there is a question that has come in for you. The member of the audience is asking for you to kindly indicate the process after the recyclables are collected and then marketed, whether the public response is adequate, and can the end product be utilized in Dominica in another industry? So as it relates to the end product of recyclables and using them as commodities afterwards, can they be utilized in Dominica in another industry? That's what is being asked.
Okay, so presently at the solids management facility, we have a baler that we utilize to process PET bottles, which is very, very common. We see it all over. That is grade 1. But we are not producing a commodity out of that particular item. In terms of the public participation, where the whole concept of recycling is, the percentage is very small. We have averaged that the put-out rate per community is probably 5 to 10% in terms of people who actively separate the material that we collect, your glass, your plastic, your can. So the put-out rate is very small. We see some of the industries like Coca-Cola. We have a great partnership with them, so we do collect a lot of material from the industry. But at the household level, there is much wanting to be done, and we're hoping that those of us who are in the listening audience could basically participate. We have a collection system that runs from Mondays to Fridays, so special equipment is tasked for that activity, but we'd like to see a greater output from that sector.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, I will stick with you a question that I had. Your presentation, well, in the same vein as the individual in the audience who asked that first question, but waste as a resource, which is something you spoke about. My question is as it relates to our white goods and our derelict vehicles, which seem to be accumulating very quickly. Is there any sort of way that these can be used as a resource, or have you seen any opportunity for these items to be used as a resource? I know you spoke about plastics, but what about these items?
Okay, so your HMS or LMS, well, your LMS is basically light material, HMS being high material. So your car basically is LMS. Your steel, high beam, HMS. You will have to pass those material through a refinery process, which we don't really have in Dominica. So what we basically do is process the material, cut it to a particular size for exportation purposes, and then export the material. But the other items, like our municipal solid waste is very, it's smaller in composition. And thereby, when we speak of waste as a resource, we more or less focus more on our municipal solid waste stream and not necessarily on your bulky waste stream.
Okay.
Though you could reuse your steel, but in the Dominica context, our HMS, because we do not have the facility that is required for that, you would export those commodities. But in terms of your municipal solid waste, based on the composition, that material in itself, you could reuse it over and over and over and over again, if you have the right technology at hand for that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Laville, there is a question for you. It relates to DOASCO. Are there any specific challenges that DOASCO is experiencing now with regard to the distribution and management of their water resources? So any specific challenges that you may wish to highlight that DOASCO is experiencing currently with their management of water resources and distribution as well?
Yes. There's one that I think goes along the lines of what is being discussed here. With the first to become produce 100%, have communities 100% potable water to all communities. We have had to basically supply waters to the areas that are a little bit, higher than our tanks, our reservoirs, and even our intakes. There's only one way that you can get water in a closed conduit to go against the force of gravity, and that is you have to give it thrust. How you give it thrust? Using a pump. Pumps consume a lot of energy. The Wasco energy bill is exorbitant. However, we have found new and innovative ways to reduce our energy consumption. And just as Dr. Joseph was saying, there are agencies out there who are willing to give funding when you show them that you intend to go green. We are going into photovoltaic now, renewable sources of energy to reduce the cost of electricity. And I would just like to say to innovators that there are opportunities out there. Look for the funding, go green. Consider your pollution. Look for ways where you can reduce on your energy consumption, because that might just be the thing that's going to set you apart from the rest of the competition out there.
Thank you. I have another question for you. This one came when you spoke about rainwater harvesting as one of the suggestions for water management. And my question is if there are any concerns or any difficulties with vector control issues, particularly mosquito breeding, when you encourage rainwater harvesting, particularly on the domestic level, and how would you address that?
Which is it? Environmental health. They are
Yes.
doing a fantastic job. They have been to my house and they have told my father, listen, you need to throw down that drum of water. So different agencies are doing their part. That is one consequence of it. You tend to have water that is stagnant, but rainwater harvesting is not to store the water for days that are not raining. You store the water for your consumption. And just a little story that within the US, I think it's New York, they designed a building that was so efficient water consumption in energy it actually became, it worked too well. The water in the building started to smell and have a bad taste. And they call the water company angry like we always do. What type of water you all are giving us? You understand me? Water company send their technicians. They said, listen, the water that you have, right, is what we give everybody else. Same thing occurring. Send for the water company again, angry letters. To just get down to the bottom of the matter, the building that was so efficient, it became too efficient. Water was getting stagnant within the house. So it is an issue. It's a fine balance, but the important thing with water is that there has to be some level of disinfection.
Okay.
And last time I said that, it opened up a can of worms. Disinfection is important. I can guarantee everybody here that probably a quarter of the world's population is alive because of disinfection in water. Death rates plummeted as soon as water began to be disinfected with chlorine. Plummeted. Certain vector-borne diseases were eliminated. So let us not be like some of the Jewish people in the Bible, where they forget the act of their God and they became laissez-faire. So let us remember that some of us are alive because of disinfection, and do not criticize the process, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lavelle. I think we may have time for just two more questions before we need to proceed to count down to Earth Hour. Mr. Case, I am coming to you with a question on renewable energy. As it relates to implementing renewable energy methods, particularly in business, and you did focus on solar energy as one such method. What is the advice, if any, as it relates to ensuring these solar panels or these solar methods that people may want to engage? As you mentioned, the weather impact that can affect such attempts at renewable energy use. So any advice or what is the practice as it relates to ensuring these items and maintaining their value in the event of a weather calamity?
Okay, so yes, your system should be insured and properly protected from any weather system that could cause damage to it. You also could engage in what we call building practices that would mitigate the effects of weather systems that could pose a problem based on the design and how you mount your solar panels on your roof. I specifically mentioned solar panels because they are easily accessible and cheap. So most people have access to it and can afford a series of solar panels to meet their demands. And it will be the most affordable and the most economically accessible technology. So yes, insurance is relevant. It would be prudent for any owner to do so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Case. We have to conclude at this time. We are now going to count down to Earth Hour. Thank you so much, panelists, for your contributions and your engagement this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We have 2 minutes before 8:30 in the evening. So once again, good evening to everyone, especially to our chairman, Mr. Nicholas Bruno, our executive director, Cletus Joseph, NDFD management and staff, our esteemed panelists and moderator, and everyone tuned in various media outlets, including our Facebook page, via Zoom, Emo News, and Dominica News Online. So breaking news, 1 minute to go. Over 50,000 hours have already been given to our planet so far this Earth Hour. People and institutions around the world, from Singapore, Australia, Taiwan, Cameroon, and other countries in Africa, Germany, France, the UK and other countries in Europe, Bermuda, Suriname, Brazil, and other countries in the Americas. And now it's our turn. So, Dominica, are you ready? We have 30 seconds to go. Are you ready to switch off your lights and switch off ourselves or yourselves to give an hour for Earth? So here we go. 10 seconds to go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy Earth Hour, everybody. Switch off your non-essential lights, and then switch off yourselves and do something, anything positive for planet Earth. We would like, of course, to acknowledge everybody out there, establishments, business buildings, and other institutions and groups who are there doing their own initiatives in line with our Earth Hour 2023. Don't forget to join us in our Zoom, and then also post your photos, your videos, all your Earth Hour moments, and add the hashtags Earth Hour Dominica, biggest hour for Earth, and my hour for Earth, and let's make Dominica and Earth Hour trend tonight. So once again, don't forget to post your Earth Hour moments on your own social media pages, and then add the hashtags. So Dominica and the rest of the world, this is the Commonwealth of Dominica, in unity with all of you out there during this meaningful hour for our planet. Earth Hour 2023. So once again, we would like to invite everybody, everyone, wherever you are right now in the Commonwealth. If you are doing any activity in line with Earth Hour, remember you can always zoom in, okay? You can zoom in to us and join us and let us know what's happening. You can tell us what you are doing in line with our celebration. Of course, for those who are still not aware, our meeting ID is 894-1425-7677, and our passcode is 675262. So those are the Zoom details for you to be able to join us. And later on, we're gonna give opportunities to some of you to be able to show everybody who are watching on via the social media pages what you are or what you decided to do. What kind of activity you are doing for that hour that you are dedicating for the planet. All right. So thank you again, and now I'm gonna turn over the floor to our next moderator, no other than our executive director, Mr. Cletus Joseph.
Thank you, Donald. Happy Earth Hour, Dominica. Thought I would hear some cheers for that. let's give an applause for Mother Earth and Dominica. I want to again recognize those persons joining us in social media world, those on the NDFD Zoom connection, those on the NDFD Facebook page, Imo News, and also we have DNO streaming us live as well. So Thanks for tuning in. The second panel we have this evening is on sustainable agriculture. We did mention earlier. Now, we have three experts here in the field of sustainable agriculture. But when we talk sustainability, this has become sort of a mainstream word, and we use it interchangeably with terms such as climate change and green, sustainable, and we talk about them like they're all one and the same. But we have three persons here who will give their perspectives from their experiences, from their training, from their knowledge, and from the work that they have done and their interest in Dominica as to what it is that sustainable means. So I will take the opportunity to introduce our panelists for this section. To my immediate right, I have Mr. Andrew Magloire. Now, Mr. Andrew Magloire is the former Chief Fisheries Officer for Dominica, and he did hold that position for, I think, 15 years, Mr. Magloire, and I remember our works in the field together. And Mr. Magloire, in addition to that, is an oceanographer trained in that. I think you hold a Master of Science in Oceanography. As well as fisheries resource management and extensive training in countries such as Japan and other Asian countries. So Mr. Magloire will be specifically speaking about fisheries management and sustainable fisheries to us this evening. Next to Mr. Magloire, we have Mr. Sorry, let me correct myself. Dr. Dave Lloyd. We affectionately call him Dave in the field that we have worked, and he has worked with, I think all of us on the head table there together, we have had experiences together. Now, Dr. Dave, affectionately known as Dave, so we'll go by like the ways we like to call each other. And so he has a PhD in soil science. And when we talk sustainable agriculture or any form of agriculture, we usually think soil, and soil is one of the most important components of agriculture. In addition to having a doctorate in soil science from Cranfield University, he has a Master of Science in soil ecology and soil biology from Lincoln University, as well as a BSc in agronomy from the University of West Indies St. Augustine campus. And Mr. Lloyd, Dr. Dave, has been recently involved in a lot of several projects with regard to land degradation and restoration, particularly in Dominica and the Bahamas. I know from my personal interactions, Dave, we did work at the DBMC together, and you did some extensive work in research and development with Windfresh and Windband, I think, yes, if that was the term. And the research done in that was very instrumental in informing the production of bananas for export to the United Kingdom and for our own local consumption. Dave is also the owner and founder of Eco App Inc., again, putting his passion and his love to the fore there. And I think he will call me up if I didn't say that he himself is a farmer who is very interested in land preservation, and he is implementing a lot of the knowledge that he has in that regard to ensure that the little plots of land that he uses and owns are sustainably cultivated. And then to Dave's right, we have Mr. Kent Coppell. Kent is currently the technical specialist at ICA, ICA for Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture. Kent holds a Master's of Science in Agribusiness and Marketing from the University of the West Indies, and also a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy. So, well-versed persons, and I, in terms of experience, Kent has worked at Dexia as a market development officer, and did some research work with CADI, again, Caribbean Agriculture Research and Development Institute. So I present to you a panel that is well versed in the area of sustainable agriculture. Let me note, I must draw, and maybe can maybe even forget that he is currently heading or leading a project in sustainable land management. You look at me like you're frightened, my brother. Huh? That for the last 2 years or so in sustainable land management, particularly targeting the development of rural women involved in agribusiness and agro-processing. So that puts you, my friend, in the light to give us your take on when you hear the term sustainable agriculture. What is it that strikes you? There's a mic close to you, and you can hold it for the rest of the night.
Hello. I think they will do a better job in holding this mic, but before I go into responding to your question here, let me just thank the NDFD for inviting me to be part of tonight's discussion. I rather see it as a dialogue rather than a panel. And I think the initiative, I must congratulate the NDFD on this initiative because that the concept of green solution, green economy, green opportunities, and utilizing the green as part of our moving forward in business is certainly the way to go. And I think the panelists that came on very early clearly laid the foundation for the importance of in the various aspects. Now, coming to the question, we will never be able to cover the area of sustainable agriculture tonight. I think we're going to just do a little bit of dabbing in various areas that are important to Dominica and try to put in the context where persons can understand. But just because you gave me the mic first, it is important that we define what is sustainable agriculture. Like everything else, you want to ensure that the needs of the people for today can be met without compromising the needs of future generations. So in a simple way, is it involvement in an industry, in agriculture in that case, where we can utilize the resources, be able to produce, be able to get some money out of it, but not depleting those natural resources. So that's an important thing that you need to really be clear on. So I will leave it at that for now, and as we get more into the discussion, I shall raise some key components as we speak in terms of the whole issue of sustainable agriculture.
Thank you. And Dave, let's have your take on it as well.
Okay, good night to all, and thanks for having me. I think Kent set the platform. I share his sentiments. With regards to sustainable agriculture, there are several definitions for that term. I like to draw the analogy of a chair. You know, if you have normally you have chairs with 4 legs or so.
Sometimes
so,
3.
Yeah. So yeah, in the context, we'll kind of look at sustainable agriculture in the same vein of sustainable development. So if we look at the 4 legs, I think one of them would be the social dimension. Normally we tend to think of the environmental first, you know, but the social dimension, people, you know. Then the issue of the economics, right, is important. So for agriculture to be sustainable, it must be economically viable. The farmer must, you know, it must make business sense to him and those involved. The environmental is there, as I pointed out. We cannot be sustainable if we have agriculture that's polluting the environment. We had the person from the WASCO, Mr. Laville, spoke about that earlier. And then the whole question of the human factor, although some element of social is in there, but when I speak of social, I mean like the corporate responsibility and all this part of it. On the human side, we have to look at how what we do impacts human health, you know, and so it's multi-dimensional, but in the same vein as Kent mentioned, that we cannot compromise, you know, meeting our needs today, we cannot do that at the expense of the future, generations. And we must consider all these bases. If we just look at the environmental, we have an issue if it's not profitable, that type of agriculture is not profitable, there's a problem there. There's also an element of governance that's required. Sometimes we forget that, but the framework needs to be there to have all these things, working properly and effectively, right? To get going. Yep,
Okay, thank you, Dave. Now, Andrew Magloire, I want to bring you in because of the fisheries aspect. So I think Kent and Dave touched a little bit on the food part, and you're going to talk about the meat or the fish. So fisheries, and I know you are a strong advocate for ensuring that the fisheries resource is utilized in a responsible manner. But when we talk sustainability and fisheries and agriculture, tell us.
Thank you very much, Chair. Members of the panel here, invited guests, and listening public. I really appreciate you inviting me to be part of this discussion this evening. And fisheries being a component of the whole agricultural sector has special purpose associated with it, and requires really special attention to fully understand how we can achieve sustainable fisheries operations within the framework of the fishery resources contained within the EZ of Dominica. First of all, let me start off by saying that fish, by virtue of what it is a renewable resource. Why I say it's a renewable resource? Because it has the potential to replenish itself through the reproductive process. And so if we're going to achieve sustainable fisheries, we have to pay particular attention to the ability to manage those resources with a view as to allowing them to regenerate themselves adequately to meet the needs of human consumption for which we are using the fish for. So to be a viable renewable resource, fish requires a high dependence on environmental health qualities. The water quality must be pristine so as to allow the fish, which is a live organism, to be able to continue this process of reproduction, growth, feeding, etc. It also needs an ecological system that is dynamic, so that you find if your atmospheric environment is polluted with a lot of carbon, then we tend to produce acid rain. And then acid conditions affects the water and then affects the ability for that fish to reproduce itself, and therefore the sustainability of fish becomes compromised in that respect. So we, having taken this into consideration, then we can begin to talk about how we as the players impacting on the fishery resource can ensure sustainability in light of fish for food, in light of fish for business, okay, as well as in light of fish for future generations to come. So I will talk a little bit here about the business ventures associated with fisheries. We can use fish from 3 different aspects with respect to business. One, you can just simply go out either in the river or in the ocean and extract fish from the fishing practice. And extract fish from the fishing practice for its use. Or we can engage in the aquaculture process, which means that you're actually retrieving fish from the natural environment and containing it into a closed system and allowing it to reproduce, and then you use the reproduced fish as a means of generating food or some other business ventures, if it's some product development that you want to engage in and so forth. And additionally, we can also, when we speak of fish, we also speak in terms of the context of the marine environment. We can engage in things like the culture of the seaweeds and those sort of things. That's another form of agriculture. So sea moss culture is one thing that we can look at as well as a productive output for business within the fishery sector arrangements. So let us talk of the wild capture of fish and to see how we generate business within that context. Dominica, by virtue of what we do, is that we have a series of fishers operating across the island using very small scale type of operations to engage in the fishing practice. It's not entirely commercial, but it is commercial by virtue of the fact that people are actually obtaining a livelihood from that fishing operation. And so we have to begin to consider what are the factors that are required to ensure sustainability of the fishery resources by virtue of its governance. And the governance aspect requires now for the state to put in place the legislative framework that will govern how we go about the exploitation or the harvesting of the wild resource to ensure its sustainability. Secondly, I think we need organizational structures within the human resource activity arrangements to allow people to understand what are the demands on them to ensure that they themselves understand that this resource can be sustainable and how we use it to ensure that sustainability through our practices. So we can exploit fish through a sustainable manner, or we can exploit fish to the extent where we drive them into extinction. And so these are the things that we have to consider when we exploit fish for business, because the demand for fish is, as a health component, is a very high demand. So it is easy, therefore, for us to go out there and just harvest to the point where we can deplete the resource, and then it becomes non-sustainable.
Thank you. I want you to hold that point, and I'll come back to you on it. But it's a big C, right? It's a big C.
It's a big C.
Right. But I want to come to Dave. And let us take the typical example. Dominica is smaller than the sea because Dominica is in the sea. So let us bear that in mind. That's small Dominica in the big sea. So we have plenty of fish, but we have very little land. So Dave, let us take the typical example. And I believe a few years ago, our average farm size was about 2.5 acres, right? I'm almost certain it's less than that now. Like the commercially established farms are much smaller. But how do we entertain the thought of you want to use that plot of land to produce food, one, for your personal consumption, and two, as an economic activity that will finance your standard of living, feed your family, pay your bills, help you drive a vehicle to get to work, and all of those stuff. So how do you utilize that very small piece of land in a sustainable manner and make sure that, because agriculture involves and economies of scale, which are very important if you have to be profitable. So give me your thought on that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important and interesting question. Mr. Maglow considered fish to be a renewable resource. I consider soil, and many soil scientists, with good reason, to be a non-renewable resource. From the standpoint that it takes more than our lifetime to produce a centimeter of soil, right? So if it's not gonna be, replaced in our lifetime, we consider it non-renewable. Many of us act that is not a fact. We behave like, you know, our stewardship responsibility means nothing when it comes to use of the land. So your question sort of put the context of a small farmer who is dependent on the land. And traditionally, we have to go back, we have to look back as to what our parents and grandparents did. They acted a lot more responsibly. The Kalinago way of life, the people who the Europeans met here, was one, of it's a sustainable lifestyle. We operate quite differently today with all the fertilizers and pesticides and all that we use. And I think there's a lack of understanding of how the soil works. And there's not an appreciation that the soil is alive. A handful of soil will contain, bacteria and fungi and actinomycetes and so on that will outnumber the people on planet Earth. Okay? Now, you've never heard of a bacteria being extinct. We cannot really, we don't know because it's so vast. We don't know what we don't know what we're doing. But it's not, that all is lost, and I believe there's a lot that we can do and learn and improve as to how we manage what God has blessed us with. We have overall pretty, reasonably good soils. What we see with right now, it doesn't take much more than a heavy shower to see the turbidity. It's still a few years, but of our water, of the water in our rivers, that it gets brown and chocolatey and so on, and that is lost, and as you said, it's not being replaced. But we can put in measures with regards to curbing erosion, the vetiver strips, and so on, and just our system of cultivation where we use more tree crops and we do a lot more interplanting and so on, that we don't expose the soil that much. Unfortunately, right now, our landscape is dominated by more short-term type of agriculture. The crops, shorter cycle. So your dasheen, your ginger, and so on, yams. And all this type of system, involves manipulation of the soil, making mounds, making beds, making ridges, and so on and so on. And in the context of Dominica, we must come back to the context of Dominica. Heavy rains, right? Our soils are what you find some of the nutrients, particularly your cations, magnesium, and so on. They're easily leached, with the heavy rain. So if you don't have measures in place to protect the soil, keeping it covered, that's very important. Keeping it covered, using our legumes like our beans and so on to cycle nitrogen and add nitrogen to the soil and that sort of thing. Using compost, the whole waste discussion, all that is part of it. And we can do a lot more with regards to safeguarding our food and our health. When we take care of the soil, that's what we're doing. It's not just about the farm. We have to consider seriously that the health of the soil is closely linked to our health, right? It's closely linked to the quality and quantity of drinking water that we have available. We tend to take it for granted. that, you know, we will always have water and we will always have, yes, it's true, right now we are a water surplus country, whereas most of our neighbors are water deficit countries. But if we don't take stock, we don't take the time to understand how that nature is functioning and what we're doing to disrupt nature from providing us with the essential services that we need, food and water, we could quickly lose this thing. There's a lot of talk about and valid concerns being raised with regards to our mode of development in Dominica and how we choose to you know, to develop and so on. Yes, there's infrastructure that's needed, but we have to be very careful because we have one Dominica, one little piece of rock. Sometimes you get the feeling that we in this big space, you know, but it's really, really, really a small island, and we cannot afford mistakes. So some of the information is available. What I find is that for you know, we still have a lot of you know, we're still at the stage of demonstration, you know. So like a vetiver, you know, in the landscape, you'll see that as a demonstration site rather than on most farms in a hilly country like Dominica, you know. And we've been regressing in some respects because we are challenged with the natural disasters which knock down the tree crops, and we're not as quick in terms of reestablishing, both in terms of our tree crops and even our forests, where we are also challenged there as well. I'm not too sure if I strayed from your question too much, but essentially, protecting the soil, we need to add organic matter, right? We need to add organic matter. Organic matter is what the organisms in the soil feeds on, and that in itself will, you know, provide the nutrients that plants need, right? And we need to protect that soil. Cover all the time. That's very important.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. But you're making certain linkages there, you know. So I thought the first panel discussion we had was separate from this one. Well, I see we constantly going back to points that were made, especially when it comes to waste management and water management, which we spoke about. And you speaking about what we do in our agriculture impacts the quality of water that we eventually have to consume. And Andrew Magloire, you also mentioned the issue of the wastewater. And when we speak fisheries, we didn't even talk about freshwater fishing, the crayfish, and I hardly see crayfish again anyway. So we have to ask ourselves some serious questions. But so it is showing that the entire discussion is linked all along the way. And let us not divorce the first discussion from this one. But Kent, I want to come. So Dave was talking from a kind of a scientific point of view in terms of protecting the soil. And Dave, I would say maybe we regressed a bit, if you would agree with me, because now we're talking about only having demonstration vetiver strips. When we used to produce vetiver mats, we used to cultivate vetiver and make mats and baskets and all of the stuff. So it's something of having to kind of revisit. Maybe we think our parents were stupid. I don't know. But let's talk a little bit more about that same small plot of land and that small country, and a lady out in the rural area has to live off that, the economics of it, the social impact on the livelihoods of it. So we can separate it from the governance issues that may be out of their hands in terms of things, but there are local governance techniques that we may have to implement. So give us something more on that livelihood maintenance.
No problem. I think it's important that we start to define how we going to go about the small portions of land in terms of agriculture and agricultural development. We cannot continue to see things as growing a crop or raising a livestock or aquaponics or any of this sort. We have to see the farm as a business. And once we start to define the farm as a business, we now need to make that business sustainable. And I say that to say, you find people still say, I'm a dashing farmer, I'm a yam farmer, I am an avocado farmer. And you don't hear farmers saying, I have a farm enterprise that involves an assortment of commodities that are complementary. And I think we need to start speaking in the language of the farming systems. And part of that, a small farm, and I'm gonna try to bring it together from not just the small farm, but the catchment in which a small farm is operating, because no individual farm in a sustainable system can do it on its own. And I say that to say, we in Dominica, we still farm within catchments. So I want to probably define it within the catchment, or as we really practice agriculture in Dominica. So I say that because part of the sustainability of this small farm this lady may have need to be complemented by other farms within that catchment. So for instance, if a farmer decide to do good practices on his or her farm, and others around that farm not doing it, it will just be an effort in futility in the long run. Because if a guy has his farm above yours and is not practicing good soil management principles, eventually you're going to have land slippage, and that's going to affect you. If somebody is not practicing good practices along the river lines, you're going to have contamination of the water. It's not going to be fit for use in agriculture. So I want us to place a lot of emphasis on the whole farming system, and I want to break it up in a few bits. Our agriculture is too dependent on inputs from the outside. Our soil nutrients are mostly chemical, artificial. Our pesticides are chemical based, and most of what we bring in. And if you're going to add value to what you do, you obviously have to control some of the inputs, because you know the rising cost of inputs, because inputs are usually hinged to the fuel, and the rising cost of fuel, increasing cost of inputs. And therefore, your cost of production keep rising with the introduction and reuse of inputs from outside. So we now need to find means of producing some of these inputs on your farm. So when you start speaking of composting, you don't see it as something you're doing on the side. It is one means of reducing your cost of nutrients that you'd have gotten from the fertilizers and so on. So that is one aspect. So we're looking at some of the inputs. And that include your planting material. Even planting material, nowadays farmers go to get seedlings and so on when they could do their own seedlings. So we have to try to reduce on our cost of inputs by trying to develop systems that encourages production of those inputs. The other thing that we have to do is to really look at reduction in our waste, farm waste. And that also means the utilizing of the crops for other uses. So you may have, people may, even in the banana industry, we have things like banana fiber that can be made from the stems. In the other crops, we can generate other products. So that's something that we have to look at, where we can stretch that product in its widest use. And that also include some element of value addition, because you find farmers sell a lot of the raw material. So we now farmers need to start thinking, how can I increase my returns from expanding beyond just the fresh produce? So these are some of the immediate things you can do on the farm. But the farm can also be complemented with other opportunities, like for instance, agrotourism. Your farmers now can say, look, I have this small piece of land. I am doing all these things, I can tie this in. So I'm trying to tie in the whole sustainable agriculture with the whole sustainability of your livelihood, because they are closely tied. So I'm looking at the question you're asking as what an individual can do on your small farm to ensure sustainability. They need to do the connecting with the various aspects in terms of business opportunities on that farm. So I just wanted to touch on that. And something that is very important as part of our sustainability is the whole issue of, it's something that we don't see it as part of our farm, is the protection of the investments, whether by way of insurance and other means, but we need to protect some of the investments on those farms. So Cletus, I think I will stop here for now because I think I can continue, but
I coming back to you. I know, Dave, I know you have a point on that, but we're going to take a short break right now just to have some highlights of some Earth Hour activities that are happening. But when we come back, we want to bring the discussion more into, given these challenges, like some suggestions for some solutions that could help to arrest these things. And I know, Kent, you spoke about the agro-tourism part. Dave, you spoke about even the composting. Andrew, I'll be coming back to you because it's still a big C. So we're coming back to that, and then how the kind of solutions that we can have to ensure that we utilize these resources, bring in some income, some revenue, but help ensure that we have it for the next generation. Donald, are you ready? We have some footage that we want to show from, you're ready yet?
Yes. Again, interesting discussion so far, Edie and the rest of our panelists. But for the meantime, we will go to our Zoom participants. We have a group here that has been with us since the beginning in 2021, and they are back, and they're joining us. So if they're ready, JCI Dominica, let us know where you are and what you decided to do during this Earth Hour. Hello? You can introduce yourself and all the others that are there, and let us know what's going on. Okay, hold on. We're trying to...
Somebody's there.
Okay, so while we are waiting for the audio of JCI Dominica, we would like to remind everybody that you can still join our Zoom. The meeting ID is 894-1425-7677, and the passcode is 675262. Okay, let's try again. JCI, can you say something? Let's see if we can hear you.
Yes, you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah, please
good
introduce
evening.
yourself and then tell us what you guys decided to do during this Earth Hour.
Okay, good evening again. Michael Debon here, President of GCI Dominica 2023. This year, we decided to do something different from the ordinary. Last year, we had a whole campfire by the beach. This year, we came closer to town. So we are at Reunion Park. A few of us gathered at Reunion Park, and then we cleaned Reunion Park, which is a park that we adopted. And so we just finished cleaning it. Later down, we will be planting a few flowers around Reunion Park, set up the place nice, bring it back to its glory. And I mean, we cannot end the evening without cooking food. So we're going to go and cook some food under the old time way,
yes,
and enjoy the celebration of Earth Hour.
All right.
What you cooking?
Mr. Joseph, if I tell you, police might go and pick me up. But
Tell us
we are
what you're cooking,
local,
my brother.
local.
You can't
Locally cooking,
you
Mr.
can't be
Joseph.
ashamed of what you're cooking, man. We'll tell you, we'll bail you.
Oh. Okay. But we are cooking local. I think everything we're going to do is local. So
and
our dashing, our fig,
That's
our
the new beef. That's the new,
and I'm sure
new dish, right?
and we might have a few crayfish in it and some local fowl and some other stuff in it.
All right.
Now I understand why you're afraid to say what you cook.
And I'm sure you guys are using sustainable materials tonight. So
we're using wood to cook that way. Wood and you are Mr. Joseph from Vickers, so you should know the old time black pot.
Yeah, man.
Good. So we're going to be
Shots
cooking in
here.
an old time black pot and use wood.
You didn't
All
cut a
right.
tree. You harvested a fallen tree, right?
Repeat that.
You harvested a fallen tree. You didn't just cut a tree to cook the food.
That tree fell already.
Oh.
It was not our doing that caught it. We met it on the B-side, so
All
we're
right.
using
Since Maria. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So thank you very much, JCI Dominica. You know, this group, ED, they have been with us since 2021. So every year they are there. So thank you very much for your Earth Hour moment. Don't forget, post your Earth Hour moments and then on your social media pages and add the hashtags Earth Hour Dominica, biggest hour for Earth, and my hour for Earth. So anybody else in the Zoom who would like to share what they decided to do during Earth Hour? Anybody? Anyone else? Of course, Edie, we are already seeing some photos and videos on social media, and we have a very, very what you call that, huge, not huge, but important video to try to show later, because for the first time in our 3-year observation, I think we finally have a real landmark, you know, here in Dominica that went dark, so to speak, which lights were turned off. So I think the video is now on its way. So hopefully we would be able to show that to all of you. So I guess there's nobody yet in the Zoom who like. So maybe later we'll just come back to them. So.
All
Back
right,
to you, Edie, and our esteemed panelists.
Yeah, thank you. I'm seeing some very interesting names on the Zoom connection. So thank you guys, everyone, for that. You're special people, and some of you are extra special. I won't call names. I'm not going to call names though now. Yeah. So yeah, some very special people are on. So thank you for joining us. I can see the Zoom. As for the Facebook page, thank you for joining us, guys. Those on Emo News, those on DNO, welcome. Thanks for joining us on our Facebook page as well. But we're going to come back to the issue of sustainable agriculture and how. But Dave, in terms of the issue of getting that small plot of land and making it work, I think you can use an example from what you do on, like, second nature. You just do it because it's part of you, you know it's the right thing to do and it's enhancing, and then give some pointers as to how we can really transform that thing that is not just a figment of our imagination, or we just do it because just for doing its sake, but it can really pay dividends to us in the end and be sustainable financially, sustainable environmentally, and sustainable socially. So give us some pointers. Then I'll come to you, Andrew, in terms of still to talk about that big C we have and how we can use it sustainably.
Okay. The farmer, makes decisions every day. He decides what to plant. He decides, and I can recall my mom was also into farming, but somehow she had a good understanding of the market, when things are needed and so on, and she have them in time, so she makes sure there's avocados before independence when there's a high demand, and and that sort of So the farmers make their decisions. We may, as a scientist, I might find some of them, not making scientific sense, but they have that understanding of the environment. So whereas I might sit here and say we should do X, Y, and Z and so on, they are, I myself make decisions on my farm, as to what I do. A lot of times, people, farmers would make a decision to plant something based on the expectation that they can sell. There's a market, and so that's why I said there's multiple legs on which sustainability has to stand. So whereas it might make sense to plant have an integrated system and plant a number of things, that could work. It make ecological sense, right? One feeds into the other and so on. And you have a good system in terms of the soil management. But then that additional work you put into that and then you can't sell it, So I say that to say that it's not just a farmer, issue. It's a broad issue, right? And we have to continuously look at it from the multiple legs and multiple approaches. But that said, though, there are opportunities with regards to processing. I think Kent mentioned it earlier, adding value. We need to also look for what, in terms of crop selection, choosing what is compatible with our environment. Dominica, yeah, you might see the soil, it's soil everywhere, but we have different soil types. We have different rainfall patterns. There are differences, right? And we have to understand what works best within, our system. And in the Dominica context, we need to decide what we want as a country, because there's a number of things we can do and we could do well, but we need to consider the entire value chain, right? From the market to the, right to the production end. And if we can develop a brand that is less reliant on external inputs, we can become more sustainable, I believe. We can become more resilient. We also have to consider our the genetic side of things. Okay, we have, for instance, cocoa. We have cocoa that it's the best anywhere in the world. But today we are importing cocoa from Grenada because we don't have enough. I mean, Hurricane Maria was in 2017, man. Come on. Cocoa, you get full bearing cocoa. If you graft it, you can get it in 18 months, you can have cocoa bearing. By 5 years, definitely you're swinging. I see no excuse for these things. So these are the avenues. We have good, the genetic resource is there. And I'm not telling you that, we've done as part of a group I've been in, we took 60 samples we collected all over the country, had them analyzed, DNA fingerprinting, and we have the data on it. Excellent quality, top quality cocoa anywhere in the world. Right here. And the thing about it is that it's unique. Out of the 6,000 samples that are in the gene bank in Trinidad, right? The UE Cocoa Resource Center. It's unmatched. You cannot find them in there, so it's only here. So here's a selling point, that you could develop cocoa products around, that unique. You can apply for now for what they call geographic indicator. So same way that in France, Bordeaux wine can only come from Bordeaux. So that particular chocolate could only come from Dominica. Here it is that you have your competitive advantage and you can really make money. We have not brought in cannabis into the equation, but that is an excellent crop to be integrated into your system in terms of cover, right? Quick growing and so on, and all the other uses. And we have another issue with genetic material again, where our local strain, right? The local Dominican strain, which has an excellent balance of CBD and THC, right? That is, among the best I understood in terms of the medical cannabis side of things. We basically lost that. Okay? So that genetic line, maybe it can be, somehow with what's left, we can preserve it. We have another issue similarly with a pepper that we had there, local pepper, Border Majak. You ever, when last you saw Border Majak?
I don't remember what it looks like.
Okay, exactly. I don't think younger people might just hear the name. Okay, but that was something, a local strain that we had. We've lost. The Trinidad has its Moruga Red, all over the world, international, Scotch Bonnet, linked to Jamaica and so on. Our Border Majak should be there. That is the difference.
Thank you, Dave. You bringing up stuff that should be food for thought for us in terms of governance and sustainability. But Andrew, we can't leave the Border Majak and the Liquor Vivano out. You used to give it a good flavor. So it's a big C, and then you mentioned the issue of we can be an endangerment to that resource, to that renewable resource that we have out there. How is it that we can utilize those? And if you can also focus a little bit more on some, how you call it, less attractive species of fish that we catch. I remember as a little boy growing in Vickers, passing in certain areas, and there used to smell at certain times because the excess fish we caught, the fishers would dump it. We may not have it at that scale now, but give us your insight on that and some potential solutions to what we seem to be wanting to change our blessings into curses. So we need to reverse that.
Okay, yeah. I think if we just take a historical look at Dominica in terms of fisheries, traditionally we utilize a lot of the coastal resources, that is fish that were close to shore, because we use vessels that were not able to navigate and far reaching of the oceans. So we targeted mostly the coastal resources. So we saw a lot of beach seine fishery that landed things like jack, kuleo, and we also exploited a lot of our coastal reef species. But because of the practices that we used over the years, we saw diminishing numbers, and we recognized things like tash started to decline, things like our flying fish slowly began to disappear from the dinner tables and so on. And those factors come or stem from a combination of environmental degradation protocols as well as poor fishing practices and habits associated with the fishing operations. And so in more modern time, what we sought to do was to allow the coastal resources to have a lesser impact on fishing pressure and transfer that fishing pressure from the coastal to the offshore. So we saw now, as a result of that, our fishery became more predominantly dominated by species such as large tunas, marlin, and those sort of species, which were migratory species in respect of that. Now, that has certain unique aspects to it in terms of how we utilize the resource and how we develop our business habits with respect to those resources. Because the further we go, the more costly it becomes to get those resources. And so we develop mechanisms in our own context using materials that are available locally to reduce the cost. And so the fat fishery day was developed as a result of that. And it brought a lot of benefit to a number of persons. Also during those times, we had the declining impact on the banana industry. And so the fisheries sector became a cushioning point for many persons to earn a livelihood by going out to tap on those resources. So currently, we have to go back to look at what are the things that we can do to ensure sustainability in our fishery resource. And a lot of that has to do with our practices. And one of the first practices that we need to consider, in my view, is what we call import substitution. There are a lot of things that we have in Dominica that we use for food that can be substituted by our own local resource. Smoked herring, salt, cod fish, a lot of the tin fish and so forth. We can utilize our own local resources, all right, and reduce our import bill and create greater opportunities for persons locally in terms of livelihoods. Also, it is more beneficial to us in terms of health, because the foods that we will take locally from our local fish are much healthier in terms of the human body. So it reduces our incidence of disease, contraction, and so on. So in essence, it's a better appeal for us in relation to that.
Right, thank you. So, but I see a theme though, from we risk, if we are not careful, losing certain species of not just fish, as you mentioned, like the tash and other sort of kind of delicate fish, but also in terms of plants and unique plants like cocoa, maybe coffee too, the Arabica and Robusta.
Can I ask you a question? When last you saw a thriving VO operation in your rivers?
When I say go in a river.
You remember what VO is? We used to have a lot of VO. Book.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Where are they? Why aren't we asking the questions, where are these species disappearing to? Why are they not part of our traditional diet? And so we need to reflect back on one of the first things I said in relation to the introduction of this thing is that fish as a source of food and as a source of a resource, a sustainable resource, is highly dependent on environmental health. Okay, so agriculture has contributed to the significant decline of book and VO and those sort of things. And therefore, education becomes of paramount importance to the sustainability of fisheries, to the sustainability of agriculture. And we must not divorce agriculture from a sector component, but it must be intertwined so that fisheries dependency on good quality water from the land into our river streams, okay, will sustain the species that are critical to us. Some of us now know what we call TTV, okay? But how many of the rivers are still obtaining TTV from today? Very few. They're declining. Why are they declining? So unless we begin to associate those linkages, we are not going to be able to achieve sustainable fisheries, sustainable livelihoods.
Yes, Dave.
I share that view and that point. We have some serious challenges. So even with the whole sustainability and things that we could do, because we have very few examples of them and actually data, right? I think from the standpoint of the policymakers, they are not convinced, maybe, right, that the contribution that that direction could make to our overall economy. I think by now we would probably seeing a CBI agriculture project. I haven't heard one. All I'm hearing is infrastructure. But if these things are really important for our development, as I think they are, we need to invest in them, accordingly. So certainly there's a lot more that we can do, and the question of education is very, very important. I try not to say no to opportunities where we can engage. I hope there's many people listening, or it will reach them. But although we focus a lot of the question on the small farm, I think we need to have more of a landscape view of things. That's when the connectivity will come. Because if we consider things on, at least on the watershed scale, sometimes we talk about watershed and we're thinking of just the water catchment where the water is harvested. But the watershed is that entire area that receives water going down to the sea, and it's linking with the marine environment. And the understanding of management from ridge to reef is something that we have to get into our psyche at different levels. So when we're planning, when we're doing things, we have to understand how those, whatever we do is going to impact on that scale. Sometimes it's difficult to anticipate or understand the downstream connection. But I've been seeing it. I've been doing a lot of work in watersheds, sampling, doing water samples, looking for, in terms of biodiversity assessment, both in terms of the land and the aquatic environment. And we have serious issues. We have serious issues with our water quality, our water quantity, our stream banks with regards to, our riparian areas, the whole structure of the forest is what a forest is supposed to look like, the types of species and so on. And as I'm on that, there's some, communities like the Kalilango community, which has, I think, the greatest connection with the natural environment in terms of the land, and, for the craft and livelihoods and so on. And, we might hear about the Lauma, but there's other things, the Mibi, the other things that they use that are in decline.
Yeah, I think we can talk for the rest of the week on those things, Dave. But interestingly, we had a young Kalinago lady working with us, and she brought us some baskets manufactured in the thing. And the colors on the basket are all natural. I thought it was some coloring they were imported. And then she was saying that the black is made from soil, and the yellow is made from some particular leaf, and the green is made from some other plant. And these are all natural things. But we have to, I like the discussion because it is being instructive to us in terms of an approach that we can have. But we have to conclude. So if we take like 2 minutes each, and I'll start with Kent.
Thank you. I missed the opportunity, so I'm going to use the last 2 minutes just to indicate some of the efforts that the institution has been contributing to the discussion. As a matter of fact, when you mention Reach to Reef, we actually have an ongoing project funded by the CBF, the Caribbean Biodiversity Funds, and it's an eco-based adaptation project where we really looking at nature-based solutions. We're looking at the green solutions to addressing some of those upland activities or on upland vulnerabilities that can contribute to some of the things that we mentioned here. And we also wanted to promote the green business as part of the effort. And last year in Petit Soufriere, we actually saw some of the things that we were trying to address with the use of vective as a means to protect the landscape or to reduce on land slippage. So while we speak in those things, I agree that what we need to do is to have some more of those initiatives or those kind of installations being done in other communities so we can protect not only the farmer but the fishers, because whatever activities happen upland will certainly affect those downstream. I just really want to use the last 30 seconds just to indicate that it's an ongoing effort. We have a number of projects where we're trying to support reducing some of those vulnerabilities, and it's a harsh reality because farmers are not going to spend their money putting in drains and putting in content, and they're not going to be making a profit. So we have to really have a balance, and we really have to support some of those natural resource protection and management. And we need to really continue the effort to promote some of those regenerative approaches to really protect some of the resources that are really not so available to most of our farmers. So I think it would be nice that when looking at the small business effort, that's why I really congratulate the NDFD, where people have to look at the green solutions as an important aspect of their business or to support their business. I think it's something that we have to really pay attention to. There are business opportunities. As I indicated, on a farm, people can now do their tea manures, their own pesticidal mix using various herbs. I know some people may use gloricida, some people may use neem, some people may use garlic. You can have different options on your farm. You don't have to necessarily depend on those from the commercial end. So these are some of the things that we want to promote, and I continue to just work with the farmers. We have to work with them. We have to hold their hands. We have to guide them, and we just have to remind them of the things that we used to do in the past and do it in a sustainable way. So thanks again, and we continue the discussion.
Yeah, Dave?
Okay, just to round up, I think any drive to enhance the sustainability of our agriculture needs to have a posture that defends the farmer, put him or her, as central, and consider seriously the socio-economic aspects equally as the environmental. And we cannot do this piecemeal. We need to have, it needs to be linked into the national plan and direction for the country to take us forward. There are opportunities because I think the whole effort is to link to opportunities for businesses, green businesses, and so on. I think in the area of management of our natural resources, getting measurements. Even now we implement something, we need to be able to check to see, boy, how is that helping? How I'm remembering the proper name, or the VO. How link that to the VO population. So if we don't know the VO population now in that river that we're targeting, how can we know whether it's improving or getting worse, even if we're doing something about it higher up? We need to be measuring. So on that scale, we need people trained in that whole issue of measurement, right? We need people, spatial analysts, the GIS experts, and so on. These are people that we need. So these are opportunities, services that will support. Dominica is signatory to a number of multilateral agreements. Some of them requiring us to make improvements with regards to land, to addressing land degradation and so on. That you can measure and with spatial data analysis. So we need people trained and providing those services. Farmers themselves, the same way they go to buy fertilizers, they can probably buy tea manure or compost from, but it's not. It serves as an opportunity. The integration of livestock with crops, is another key thing. Small ruminants that we don't have to import feed for them. We can, all the copy we have growing all over the place, somehow we need to have that as an industry. So when we have the livestock industry, the waste from the livestock industry will support our crop industry. And when we have that loop, the waste from the fish can also, be good. So yeah, it's a lengthy discussion, but I'm happy to have been part of it, and I thank you and the audience, very much. Thanks.
Okay, just to wrap up from the fisheries sector aspects, I think we need a lot more consultation among the various players so that we begin to understand what are the challenges that they face. We also need to look at our national interests in terms of what we eat, what we grow, and what we produce. I'm a big advocate of import substitution. That is to say, if we look at our food import bill, how much of that food import bill can be substituted by our local resource? And it's tremendous. And we have to challenge our young people coming up today, okay, to be innovative in terms of business ventures surrounding the local resource. Okay, TTV can do a lot for us in terms of enhancing our food, nutritional aspects, but also creating business opportunities for people within that aspect. Fisheries, again, we can begin to look at compartmentalizing the fishery industry a little bit more to generate greater business opportunities, and again, creating foreign exchange earnings, not from export, but from the things that we are not going to import, and having foreign exchange loss from those aspects. So I think there's a lot that we need to begin to discuss along those lines. And I'm happy that NDF will take on this activity tonight, and we'll continue it, because we need more advocacy, we need more discussion, we need more dialogue on how we utilize the resources sustainably to achieve the goals that we want to have for resilience in the future.
Thank you, gentlemen. But I get some kind of underlying themes, and one of the key themes is the linkage and the connectivity between these sectors and across the board, that on a small island like Dominica, in a big sea like the Caribbean and the Atlantic Ocean, we have to be careful as to how we manage those resources that we have. While we say, yes, fisheries is a renewable resource, but we have non-renewable ones that interact with it, and we have to be careful as to how we do that. And there are certainly opportunities that come up with that, and as you said, to help with things like the import substitution, and we reduce this sort of, I think there's a exportation of money, exportation of funds that we really are into right now in terms of every way. Even money itself we exporting now. So we have to look at that and see how we can arrest that situation and think. But critically, I underscore the point, I want to underscore the point that we are at risk at losing some critical species that can make significant differences in terms of creating opportunities for younger persons. The weed should not just be to smoke, but rather be used for production and medical purposes rather than just smoking and getting high is a thing. Issues of cocoa production, chocolate production, that can be so connected. The raw materials can be reused in agriculture. The raw materials, the waste material from fisheries can be reused in terms of agriculture production, in terms of converting some of those what we call weeds into feed for our livestock. I was speaking with a farmer friend the other day, and he used to do pigs, and he told me, boy, he just finished that because when he gone buy a bag of feed, it was like $75 from $40. So how many bags of feed I can buy now and still sell a pound of pig meat at what I used to before, So these are the decisions, again, Dave, as you mentioned, that the farmers make on a day-to-day basis. And then whenever we speak to them, we need to come up with those types of solutions to them in terms of how they can use what we are saying to make a difference and generate economic returns to them in terms of that. But Dave, I maybe might come back to you, but the issue of data collection, and Andrew, you spoke about it too, and Kent, all three of you. If we do not know what we have, how do we know what sort of impact we are having on these resources? And we definitely have an issue here in terms of our research and development, our data collection, our setting of baselines, establishing these baselines so that we can down the road really determine whether we are being sustainable in our utilization of these resources. Cost reducing initiatives in terms of the use of energy efficient and renewable energy resources. I know, Andrew, we did not have the chance to get into how we reduce the cost of our fisheries operations by using more modern technologies, more biodegradable material like nets, like four-stroke engines rather than two strokes, those types of technologies. Kent, we hope that we can see our vetiver demonstrations become more like established vetiver farms sooner rather than later, you know, and especially as you engage in that sustainable land management initiative from ICA perspective. And let me say that we are partnering on that part of it where we help rural women in agriculture and agro-processing to develop that thing. So, gentlemen, it's been like just touching the tip of, I don't want to say iceberg, we don't have that here, but just starting to reach the base of the mountain that we really have to climb. And we certainly will be engaging you again. And if you have, we maybe want to use you as maybe mentors and advisors for some of our entrepreneurs who will be part of the Green Innovation Summit, where we help them to develop those business ideas along more sustainable lines, but not just sustainable for environmental purposes, but for the purpose of being financially sustainable and being sustainable in a manner that makes sense to them, and they can see the benefits of having it make financial sense, as well as having the positive impacts on our health. Because who would say that our activities in terms of what we do on our farms, even in other greater areas, impact the quality of life that we live? So I want to thank you very much for that. Donald, you have a video for us to share. Have you gotten that yet? Yeah, 2 more minutes. So, gentlemen, if you want, you can indulge us again with by just maybe anything that you think that we left out you want to touch on. If I don't impinge on your time too much. You know, when you see you have resources like this up here, it's not frequent that you get them as so readily available. Yeah.
Just to add, though, even in terms of we're talking about sustainability, but what we're seeing with climate change, we're also seeing changes in terms of the ecological structures of our resources. We see now, we never saw before, blooms of algae, sargassum seaweed floating into our zones and creating all kinds of destabilizing structures. But at the end of the day, what are the benefits that we can harness out of that resource? And it is a resource. It's a resource that is going to stay in here with us because of the climate change. So we have to begin to be more innovative. We have to take what we consider to be challenges and turn them into opportunities. You know, I see sargassum being a major contributor to addressing some of the soil deficiency factors because of the nutrient content that associated with it. And if we can use it and compost it and do sort of things with it, we could generate some significant inroads in terms of benefits along those lines. So as I said, we need to challenge ourselves as a people. We need to stop looking at the externalities of things as the better things for us. And whereas we have resources inland that are far more superior to us than the things that we are importing and using foreign exchange upon.
Yeah, one thing, Cletus, that we probably did not touch in a very serious way is a need for research and development and our alignment with agencies that can provide because there are universities, agencies that are willing to come in and do those deep studies to do the kind of because we need to transform the sector. We need to transform our approaches. Things are not going to be this. Things are not the same. The environment, whilst the environment might be similar, looking like it hasn't been changing, it is actually changing, and I think we need to really tie in the aspect of research and research as part of our development, as part of our sustainability. So I think that is something that we didn't talk much on, but I think we touched a little bit on it, but not in depth. But I think that's an important aspect. The issue of genetics, we didn't speak much about that, and I mean Dave mentioned it earlier. But how we could use those things, because we can't, it can't be business as usual. We have to marry the science with what we custom of doing, but more so to guide us as to what direction we have to go, because it's all about building efficiency. It's all about transformation. It's all about regenerative approaches, but it cannot just be. It's not going to take care of its own. So we have to really employ that sort of approach. Thanks.
We touched on it as we could. There's an opportunity there, and not only for universities to come, but we have students who live here to go to study, but somehow we don't connect. And I went through the same thing. We don't connect our students with the problems that we have. So there's probably a listing of priority areas that students live, but it should go deeper than that. That we get our students in touch with real problems, so that when they go to do their master's project, their PhD studies and so on, it's really linked to situations here that they themselves can come back and work on in the future. We provide for them, but we let that opportunity go out all the time, and you will get the benefit of top researchers or supervisors for their projects wherever they are in the world. So Dominica would benefit from that. It's an opportunity we keep letting slip away.
I want to ask you one question. Andrew mentioned it, the issue of the saga. Have you seen any studies or any works done with regard to? I've heard talk that you can use it to compost, but any scientific studies as to the benefits of that and how we can utilize that? Because it's a shame when you cannot go to the beach and it's wasting. So it's a waste. One, you can't use the beach because too much of that there. Two, it stinks in the place and it becomes a hazard essentially to dispose of. But have you seen any research done on that in terms of the benefits of it and how we can convert it into maybe compost reasonably or even something else?
Oh yeah, certainly there's a lot of studies and work going on. I think now a lot of attention is being placed on it because the blooms are getting bigger and bigger. I think the one forecasted for this season is even bigger than the last. So yes, there's even groups making building materials from this. Specific to agriculture, there are some issues, some setback, some concerns, because it also has, it's known to have a lot of heavy metals, things like cadmium and some of the others, which would get into the food chain and have serious health risks associated with them. So it's something we have to explore, particularly since we have, as Andrew said, we have so much of it, and it has nutrients that plants would use as well, but there's also the other downside. So if we find ways that we could, the same way that we remove the salt from it before we apply it to the plants, then we could remove some of those heavy metals and make it, more user friendly.
What I would like to say about sargassum is that it's new to our region, like over the past 11 years, but sargassum in the Asian countries have been a mainstay and part of the life of these people, and there are huge benefits in the utilization of sargassum, both in terms of health health and wellness, food. It's used as a food resource. It's used for agricultural purposes. So there are huge benefits. And there are lots of research available on the various uses and things of sargassum. It's just new to us in our region because of the climate change issues and so forth, but it's something that we can transform into into valuable aspects of our life rather than look at the downsides of it from a tourism aspect only.
Yes, thank you. Donald, are you there? You downloading? But gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for the insights that you've brought on, and as we said, it's just touching the base of the hill, and we have that big mountain to climb, but with our combined efforts we can rest assured that if we really put our shoulders to the wheel, or we put wheels on our bicycles, we can climb that mountain. So thank you very much for bringing your knowledge and experience to bear. We do have some little tokens for you, as well as there's some little snack available. So it is. So you ready, right? You still do.
All right. So once again, thank you, Mr. Joseph. Yeah. Okay. So once again, we would like to thank everybody who tuned in. We are still trying to get the video of that landmark. Yes. All right. So the landmark that we have been talking about is actually the State House. So we would like to, of course, thank and acknowledge His Excellency Charles Savre for for allowing us to have the State House go dark, so to speak, during Earth Hour. So finally, we have, in our view, a real Dominican landmark. So we'd like to thank him and the rest of the Office of the President. Especially, we have Ms. Blackmore, the Secretary, for, of course, all the assistance. And also, he also made a video message in line with Earth Hour, so we would like to thank him. And we had this big share from Earth Hour International itself, the global page of Earth Hour, with 1 million members. So talking about Dominica to the world. And in fact, right now, we're actually being viewed around the world, because I shared this linked to our group in the global team. Now, before we move on, we, of course, would like to acknowledge the other influencers who sent their video message to us. We had, of course, Miss Janelle Brisbane, our very highly respected wildlife ecologist and conservationist. And of course, we also have Derek Ra, who also sent his video in support of Earth Hour. We also have Marcia Baptiste. Of course, she is a Dominican beauty queen. And of course, 767 basketball team, or All-Stars basketball team, that will be representing Dominica in July in a regional tournament. So thank you very much. So once again, thank you to all who tune in, everybody on the live, on all the other online site, MO News, of course, DNO, those who are in the Zoom, thank you very much, and everybody. So I think we are ready with the video. We would like to big up, of course, Quick Links for helping us here, and of course for the person who took the footage and edited it very quickly. We have Mr. Jordan Jerome, JK Productions, and with the assistance of Mr. Charles Louis of Charles Louis Photography. So thank you very much, and happy Earth Hour again. So here is our special video to end this wonderful live that we had tonight.